So we haven't really dealt with the BBC in recent times, but now we have to talk about them again. We all know it is the enemy of the people, much like the entire government and political class at this point. So no different to last year or any other year really then. But like all the puppet media in 2020, the BBC are just a scaremongering propaganda tool of the government. They tried it with Brexit, aiming to coerce the country into doing what they wanted, but it did not work. Everyone should by now see the media are being used against us relentlessly under the guise of them being anti-government, which is why we are getting reports about their new chairman being a so-called Tory. It is, if you ask me, a complete smokescreen. And how do I know this? Well, I will tell you. The lefty anti-Boris media outlets all claim to hate this government, but in reality they don't. Let's be honest here, the media could literally bring down this government, or at least a fair few of its ministers tomorrow, given the utter bullshit they have been feeding us daily. But of course they won't. I mean, they've done such a great job that they've even convinced Corbynistas to back Boris, which is insane and maybe deserves its own video. But the point is, if the BBC and media in general was against Boris, they could end the narrative instantly, like they did in 2010 with swine flu. But this video is about the BBC's attempts to make it seem more impartial, or maybe right-leaning, I am guessing, to Tory voters, in the hope of rescuing its credibility now that it is the mouthpiece of the government and they want it to continue. Though it seems the person they're bringing in, if reports are to be believed, is not someone I would have thought the Tory voters would consider an impartial right-winger, because obviously it's George fucking Osborne, a dirty low-life liberal fuckpig with the credibility of Matt Hancock. It's just incredible, and it seems the government has even increased the pay packet to incentivise more people to show an interest. And we are not talking about chump change here either, we are talking about 160 to 280 grand a year for a part-time role. So we want to defund the BBC, and Boris Johnson wants to put his mates in there and pay them more of the licence fee payers' money. The people's government, they said, my arse is what I say in return. But the Telegraph picked up on this, so let's take a look at some of the important bits from that. It headlines, George Osborne lined up as the next BBC chairman, one of the most prestigious jobs in British broadcasting after the government increased the salary for the role, the Telegraph can reveal. Ministers increased the chairman's pay to 160 grand a year for the part-time role to encourage a wider range of candidates when the job advert was posted online this week. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, is understood to be very keen to appoint a Conservative to the role to counter a perceived left-wing bias at the corporation. Now, of course, there is going to be left-wing bias in some parts of the corporation, but at the end of the day, the news section is certainly not holding the government to account. As we all know, they are literally just the mouthpiece of Boris Johnson. And anyone with half a brain cell knows that George Osborne is hardly against the left wing, let's be honest here. One source said ministers could even lift the salary cap to as much as 280 grand a year in a bid to secure the signature of Mr. Osborne. The chairman's salary was cut to 100 grand a year when David Clementi was appointed in 2016 and has been increased by 60,000 for the 3 to 4 day per week role for a 4-year contract running to 2025. So 3 to 4 days a week and you're on 160 grand a year. That is not too bad, and I would guarantee they are not doing 12 hours a day. The role would in theory fit with Mr. Osborne's job at fund manager BlackRock, where it was reported in 2017 that he is paid 650 grand a year to work 1 day a week. Well, it's certainly alright for some, isn't it? But I have to question why in the good Lord fuck he would need this job if he gets paid 650 grand a year to work 1 day a week. Oh, hold on, I do know, they're greedy cunts. The BBC job advert said the government is looking for an outstanding individual with leadership skills and a passion for the media and public broadcasting to represent the public's interest in the BBC and maintain the corporation's independence. Are they actually having a laugh? The BBC is as far from independent as you can get at this point. But what the job advert is really looking for, if they are after Osborne, is just someone that the Tories know, you know, a friend of the people that are in charge. It appears to be the way things are going this year. Naturally, the job advert also states that all reasonable and properly documented expenses incurred in performing the duties of these roles will be reimbursed in accordance with BBC's expenses policy, giving them free rein to fleece more money out of the licence fee payer. It goes on, several government sources were tight-lipped about which candidates might put their name forward, although some downplayed the chances of Mr. Osborne getting the job. There was also some doubt ministers were able to increase the maximum salary to as high as 280 grand. Well, given the way ministers have been acting so far this year, I'm sure they won't struggle. They can just do it by decree like they've done everything else. It finishes up with other candidates who are expected to apply include Sir Robbie Gibb, an ex-BBC executive and the former head of communications at number 10 Downing Street, Baroness Morgan, who has Nicky Morgan is a former Conservative Culture Secretary and Trevor Phillips the former Equalities Chief. And I am sitting here right now putting my money on that goes to Baroness Morgan if it doesn't go to George Osborne. We all know she's a good friend of old Boris Johnson. So that is the end of it there. Apparently George Osborne or Nicky Morgan is going to make the BBC more trustworthy. Are they actually having a laugh? Personally, I don't see any of those people that they've put up as being trustworthy. In fact, nothing I think could really make me trust the BBC, let's be honest here. It does not and will never work for the people, much like political parties and indeed this government.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.